Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Sutton. Welcome back to my Introduction to GIS video series. In the previous video, we focused on the creation of simple queries. Now we will learn how to combine such expressions. Query expressions can be created to retrieve records based on multiple conditions. In such queries, simple queries are combined using Boolean operators. Boolean operators are logical connectors used in queries to refine selections. The primary Boolean operators are AND, which selects records where both conditions are true, OR, which selects records where at least one condition is true, NOT, which excludes records that meet a specified condition, and XOR, which selects records where exactly one of the input conditions are true, but not both. In the following examples, we will use conditions that are represented by this Venn diagram. In it, we have three different conditions. Condition A, which is commercial buildings. Condition B, which is buildings that are greater than 5,000 square feet. And C, which are buildings with multiple stories. We will use a layer of buildings in Macomb, Illinois to show examples. Let's say we were interested in understanding which buildings were commercial buildings and were greater than 5,000 square feet. To do this, we build an expression. In ArcGIS Pro, we can use the Select by Attributes tool. In QGIS, we would use the Select Features tool. In both instances, we're interested in the buildings whose land use type is commercial and whose square footages are greater than 5,000 feet. The result of this expression is what we see in this map. The buildings in green are the ones that meet both expressions. We can use AND to connect two expressions or more than two expressions. We might be interested in locating the structures that are commercial buildings and have at least 5,000 square feet and have multiple stories. With the OR operator, a feature is selected when at least one of the conditions is true. So we might be interested in determining what buildings are commercial buildings or have at least 5,000 square feet, but they don't necessarily have to have both. Again, we can use the OR operator to connect two statements or more. Here we see the result of an expression where we are saying that structures are either commercial buildings or are at least 5,000 square feet or have multiple stories. Any building that meets at least one of those criteria will be selected. A common point of confusion amongst my students over the years has been when to use AND and when to use OR. Let's use this map of cities in the contiguous U.S. to see how using AND versus OR gives us different results. Let's say our two conditions are cities with populations greater than or equal to 100,000, and the other condition is that they are cities inside the state of Illinois. If we combine those two expressions with AND, we get this result. We have cities that are at least 100,000 in population and are in the state of Illinois. If we connect those two statements with OR, what we see is that all cities in the contiguous United States that have a population of 100,000 are selected or are a city in Illinois. So we basically are seeing all cities in Illinois from our data set, and then any city outside of Illinois that has a population of at least 100,000. The NOT operator excludes records that meet a condition. In our A, B, and C Venn diagram, C was structures that have multiple stories. So if we say not C, we want to select any structure that does not have multiple stories. Before we had A and B, which are structures that are commercial buildings and have at least 5,000 square feet. If we put those in parentheses to keep them together and then add not ahead of that, we are selecting any building that isn't both commercial and having at least 5,000 square feet. If we were to say not parenthesis A or B in parentheses, we are saying that any structure that met either A or B is now excluded from the result. So we get only the portion of C, the buildings that have multiple stories that aren't commercial or have areas in excess of 5,000 square feet. XOR selects records that meet exactly one of the conditions, but not both. If we were to say we want locations that are either commercial buildings or at least 5,000 square feet, but not both, we would use A XOR B. One point to make about selected features is that we can create new data layers from those features that we have selected. For example, in ArcGIS Pro, if you have features selected in a layer, you can right-click on that layer in the Contents pane and select Data and then Export Data from the Context menu to create a brand new layer containing only those features. You will see the word filtering being used in GIS. Filtering is the process of defining a subset of data that meets certain conditions for display and analysis. Filters generally are applied dynamically. They can be turned on or off to control the visibility of features within the dataset. Filtering does not alter the underlying dataset. If we apply a filter to a dataset, it will not delete records from the dataset. It will just not display them. In ArcGIS Pro, we achieve filtering using definition queries. Definition queries are found in the layer properties. We create an expression and only the features that meet the conditions of the expression are displayed. In this example, we created a definition query where the county name was equal to McDonough County, and therefore only McDonough County was displayed in Illinois. To display all of the counties, we simply remove the definition query. In QGIS, we use the Query Builder found in the Source tab of the Layer Properties dialog to apply a filter. And in ArcGIS Online, filtering is applied using the Filter tool. Again, we just create an expression and then only the features that meet the conditions of the expression are displayed. In the next video, we will wrap up our introduction to queries and selections with spatial selections.